I'm John Batchelor. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com is here with me. We're watching Occupy Central. At the same time, we're looking for the significance of this for Washington and for other world capitals as they see the dictatorship of Xi Jinping. And we have every reason to argue that this is a cult of personality dictatorship, not unlike a Mao Light so far, but a man who is using modern weapons and intimidation of his neighbors routinely. So will he also use modern weapons and intimidation of the young people of Hong Kong, who are the next generation? This is China's future, and the people of China, the young people of China, are watching this. At the same time, we see sympathy demonstrations or protests or what you'd have to say rallies around the world, from New Zealand to Scotland, in Paris today, in Washington and New York tonight, of other young people who are all on social media and are capable of all participating in one collective no to the tyranny and the betrayal of democracy in Beijing. Kristen Whiton, who is the author of Smart Power, and Chapter 4 is about China using smart power or not, and how to deal with it. So, Kristen, I go to your book. You anticipated some of these changes, not all. You can't see into the future. Right now, I want to focus not on, does Beijing get this right? What about Washington? Does Washington understand this is about a betrayal of democracy? I see that the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense meeting with their opposite numbers in Washington today, anticipating the president traveling to China in November to meet with Xi Jinping. That would appear that Washington is indifferent or blind or deaf to the next generation's endorsement of democracy. Good evening to you, Christian.
Good evening, John. No, I think you're absolutely right. This administration, and this is not new for Washington. This happened in the administration in which I served. We saw serious protests come up in Tibet, come up in the Uyghur portions of Western China, and to see a Washington basically just sitting on its hands. And that was under a president who gave lip service and then some to democracy. Now you have this. You have wimpy statements out of the U.S. consulate in Hong Kong, wimpy statements out of the White House in response to a petition. And the fact that our Secretary of State meets with the Chinese foreign minister and he tweets about it. He talks about Ebola. He talks about ASEAN. He talks about the important relationship. And only at the end does he talk about and mention, just in passing, what we're all looking at today, which is, this future of China. We've all talked about this budding democracy and the question of whether it proceeds from here, whether it spreads, whether it succeeds.
Christian, Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, a couple days ago had a statement on Hong Kong, and I found it sort of particularly depressing because he talked about people's Hong Kong's aspirations for universal suffrage, and universal suffrage is not the question in these Hong Kong protests. Beijing has agreed to universal suffrage. What it hasn't agreed to is the nominating process because it wants to hold on to make sure only its candidates are able to run. And I think the White House completely misunderstood the nature of the protests in Hong Kong, and I thought that was particularly embarrassing. How did you view this?
I think you're right. And, at the State Department and throughout the the salons of expert opinion in Washington, I've been told all along that, Hong Kongers just care about money. They don't care about freedom except for a few people, except for Martin Lee and long hair and maybe Cardinal Zen. And now we know that isn't true. But Washington will, is great at not allowing new information to challenge old assumptions. And so, you do see these statements with a lot of, frankly, legalese and diplomatese about the basic law, about arcane maneuvers and promises, and, wake up and smell the people power. You have perhaps 10 or 20% of Hong Kong's population. Their numbers are hard to come by, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of people in the street, and what they want is pretty clear. They want freedom, and they want democracy, accountable government. We're just missing the point on that, and also missing the point on how this could make the world safer for the United States and for a civilized order in the world. It's not just humanitarian and sort of lovey-dovey reasons we should care about this. This could make a part of the world that is a serious risk to freedom into one that is a force for freedom.
And all we have to do is go back to the 1980s, and we have Ronald Reagan talking about the evil empire. He's talking about we win, they lose, talking about tear down this wall. And guess what? The wall did come down, and the evil empire fell. And if the other evil empire, the one that is centered in Beijing, fell, we'd be a lot better off. So I think we need a Ronald Reagan. Unfortunately, I don't see one in the White House. I don't see one in the Republican Party, except for, of course, our friend Steve Yates. But apart from that, it just seems to me that we need a better set of leaders in Washington if we're going to get a better set of results from our diplomacy and external policies.
I think that's right. And this isn't just a Republican thing. This used to be bipartisan. It was JFK in his inaugural address. They will support any friend, oppose any foe, bear any burden, undertake any hardship in order to, I'm sort of paraphrasing here, in order to ensure the survival and success of liberty. This isn't a right-wing thing. This isn't a neocon thing. The idea that more democracies and more accountable government make the world safer, it's very hard to find instances where democracies with universal suffrage, i.e. real democracies, fight each other. And, why is China picking fights with all of its neighbors? At the heart of it, you have an illegitimate regime that's trying to justify its corrupt rule, and that's why that is why it picks fights with its neighbors. And if you have democracy and freedom, then a lot of that goes away.
May 1968, a little sentimental here, Christian. May 1968 in Paris. The students in Paris turn out in great protest against the old regime, de Gaulle, the man who was hanging on with imperial ambitions in Paris. August 1968, the young people of Prague were rolled over by tanks. They turned out again and again and again against the Soviet model. I can recall talking to young people in Russia after that, saying they were heartbroken to hear the tanks rolling in Prague. They thought their youth was behind them. We know those young people were eventually rewarded with the fall of the Iron Curtain. And in August of 1968, as I recall, there was a demonstration of young people in Chicago. It overturned the order of the Democratic Party and the assumptions that the Democrats could continue to prosecute the war in Vietnam without protest. That spilled over into Richard Nixon's administration the following year. My point being, Christian, that when young people revolt against the old order, they can wait out those old guys. You take my point, Christian. They don't have to win everything today. They inherit the earth while Xi Jinping and Barack Obama go away.
I think so, and that, I believe, is why I'll bet that the top politicos and generals in Beijing this morning over there are terrified, as they have been since this came about on Sunday. And you see it in their reaction. You see it in, there's a report on the South China Morning Post that even the pigeons that were going to being taken to the National Day celebration in Tiananmen Square were searched twice, just to make sure there was no subversive material associated with them.
There were body cavity searches of these pigeons. 10,000 pigeons got poked in the rear end.
It's really amazing. And also Instagram got shut down immediately. Of course, the Great Wall, the Great Censorship Wall, is up and running. But just to pick up on that Prague...
Oh, I'm sorry, Christian, we have to stop. Forgive me. Christian Whiton is the president of the Hamilton Foundation and the author, most recently, of Smart Power. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com. I'm John Batchelor.